Welcome back to Active Ingredients, the life science leadership podcast with me, Tom Dove, founder and CEO of Fraser Dove International. Today's guest is Audrey Greenberg, a true force in biotech, finance and value creation. She's raised hundreds of millions in funding, scaled startups to billion-dollar valuations, and built some of the most ambitious cell and gene therapy platforms in the world. But Audrey's story isn't just about success. It's about bold career pivots, trusting your instincts, and defining leadership on your own terms. From investment banking and real estate to founding CBM and now shaping the future of life science investments, Audrey's journey is a masterclass in intuition, execution, and advocacy. In this episode, we explore how curiosity and authenticity have powered her career, how she helps fix the broken and grow the bold, and what it means to be loud, proud, and ready in today's boardrooms. Audrey, welcome to Active Ingredients.
Thank you so much, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. It was very kind.
No problem. So you and I have had a couple of conversations. I've always found them very exciting, very full of energy. And what I wanted to do was get your leadership story out there, because I think you've got such a good story, lots of different changes. And I'd love for you to be able to share some of this with the listeners. But we always start these podcasts in the same way. Okay, so I always ask, what do you think are the 3 key ingredients of successful leadership and why?
Oh, good question. I would say 3 things. 1, authenticity. It matters because people know you're not faking it. A lot of people can spot a faker from a mile away, and it's about breeding trust and respect and adherence to corporate norms. And then I would say 2nd, flexibility, especially in today's market. There are so many pivots happening within the political environment, tariffs, NIH funding in particular in the US, but the global arena is incredibly dynamic right now, so flexibility is key. And companies and leaders for that matter need different things at different times, so you got to be able to pivot. And then 3rd, people first. I've always been people first. Hire great people, trust them, and above all, respect and learn from your clients.
Yeah, nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
I like that one. So we always like to understand a little bit more about your background. Yours is very varied, so I'm really intrigued to talk about that. But before we get to the corporate world, can we talk about you growing up? Were you always ambitious, always curious? Can we get a bit of an overview of that?
Yeah, ambitious, highly organized, and chasing goals. I grew up in Michigan. I had an older brother, younger sister. I was a child of 2 physicians that were also entrepreneurs. And my grandparents actually had a store, and they were both physicians as well. I would go to work every weekend almost with my grandmother and mother who worked together. It was very much a family business, and my great grandparents were there. My great grandparents came over from Poland, Russia to the United States and started a jewelry store in Detroit, Hamtramck, Michigan, actually. And I would go in and they would let me decorate the windows and work with the people coming in. And it was probably 6 or 7 years old. But exposure to business at a young age and always motivated by entrepreneurship. It's sort of in my DNA and exposure otherwise, nature and nurture. But always very good in school and very studious. Like I said, loved going to work with my mother, grandmother, and my father, obviously, as well. But very structured. Could not fall asleep if I didn't have my outfit out and my homework done. Just a little bit, I don't know if OCD would be stretching it, but very highly organized and my planner was complete, and I lived my life by my planner. Another thing is I tried everything. Lived life to the fullest. I was never in one group of friends. I was sort of friends with everyone as I went into middle school and high school. And I loved to participate in all the school activities and extracurriculars. I was reading the New York Times in middle school, figuring out where I could travel to. And my mom thought I was crazy. I told her I wanted to go to camp in Africa to learn how to dance. And just crazy stuff growing up. But then when I started my early career, I was an auditor at Deloitte. Amazing. It continued my education. You work for a million different managers at a really young age, so that really launched me into exploring different areas that I wanted to pursue as I advanced in my career.
Love that. Yeah, because some people are like, "Hey, do you know what? I don't know what I was like as a kid." I've had a few that are like, "I was really introverted, and then it's taken me a lot to get this career."
Oh
With
no.
you, it was like, bang, bang, bang. I know where I wanted to go.
We had the fun house in the neighborhood. All the kids were at our house. I was throwing the parties, and so we just very social at a young age, which has helped me in my career, by the way, with networking and authenticity and connecting with people. It's important to have that point of connection. I just have always had this really natural curiosity for people and what makes them tick, why they're successful, why they failed, who are they, where are they from, what are their parents like? Just really interested in people and what makes them tick and motivates them.
Yeah, love that. Great answer. So, obviously, you've answered my next question here, which was like, did you always think that there would be a career in business? But now I'm going to reframe it and say, do you think that actually the role models that you had in your family have then put you on this journey?
Oh, definitely. There's no question. Getting exposed to business at a young age, and the questions and the conversations that would take place at the dinner table. And I'm Jewish, during Passover and some of these high holidays where my entire extended family would be sitting around a dining room table talking about politics and business and the world around us. It exposes you to things at a young age, and tons of cousins running around that were older, all ages, both the older and younger for that matter, but just an intellectually curious family. And education was very important to everyone, and being exposed to business and entrepreneurship in all aspects.
Yeah, at college doing your own P&L.
Yeah, that's right. I always have Quicken on my computer. It's a funny thing. I still to this day keep track of everything. My tax guy loves me because I've got all these detailed records.
Yeah, got that straight away. So, were there signs? Obviously, you've got this entrepreneurial background. You're having these conversations at the dinner table. Were there signs back then that you were like a builder or a fixer or that kind of founder? Did you feel that you wanted to do something on your own?
Yeah, I knew I always wanted to start a company and run something on my own. I mean, look, you learn from bosses and from employees for that matter. And as you graduate college and work for these big institutions, it's an amazing training ground. But at the same time, it can handicap that creativity that you may have. So I always wanted to let my out of the box thinking thrive, and that ultimately led me to the Center for Breakthrough Medicines and start. And by the way, I started another company in 2001, right after September 11th. I was living in New York, and I started a real estate private equity firm back then. But yeah, I love entrepreneurs, just the way that they think, how they act, the fast pace of it, the high growth. You can have a huge impact if you execute properly.
Yeah. Oh, and I can't wait. So, thank you for this foundation. I
Yes.
think that's really going to help our listeners understand more about the kind of risk reward discussion that we're going to have now. So, let's look at that early career. So, you went from Deloitte to Merrill Lynch, then private equity, and ultimately into biotech.
Mhm.
Can you explain how that transition happened?
Yeah, it was oh, by the way, I do want to say one more thing about early life, and I think this is very true for child rearing. I have three young kids myself, is the foundation of love and experimentation and allowing your child to feel safe. I felt very safe in my house, and that allowed me the great platform to then take risks. So I try to instill that in my children in terms of, and to answer your question, I think that really laid the groundwork for my appetite for risk taking. No, I started in a conservative career. I think the most conservative career you can have, which is accounting. And I worked at Deloitte in Chicago, as we talked about. But tons of different managers with different management styles. I got exposed to clients and talk about having a platform to exercise your curiosity. That's basically your job as an auditor to go ask a bunch of questions. Like, this is the best
Yeah.
job ever. You can go ask anybody anything. So it was a lot of fun and you learn a lot. And then investment banking, I always, having grown up in the 80s, the Wall Street was just a very sexy, captivating place that I always looked at and wanted to be part of, and got an opportunity to work on Wall Street at Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley, and spent some time actually on the trading floor, on the derivatives desk of all places. So a lot of different aspects of the bank that I worked in. And I love that. It was trial by fire, you working hundreds of hours a week, dealing with transactions that are what we used to say above the fold in the Wall Street Journal, but nobody gets newspapers anymore. But let's say first click and scroll with before you
Yeah.
scroll. But I would say those big company environments really gave me the comfort to realize that the world is bigger than just making money. Having grown up in a middle class household, and my parents being entrepreneurs too, just had a lot of ups and downs in terms of financial. And so when I first graduated, I was very, very motivated by making money and paying off my debt, my student loans. But then as I got more comfortable financially, I was able to take more risks. And also as I grew into my 30s, was just more motivated by, well, I guess double bottom line, right? Do well by doing good. So in 2001, I started a tax credit housing fund that worked on developing low income communities, and that was incredibly rewarding. I then became part of ING, which is a large real estate investment management organization in New York, and then joined another different one in LA. Met my husband, had 3 kids, moved to Philly for his job, was working in real estate investing pretty much for 10, 15 years. And then bought the GlaxoSmithKline headquarters building in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, and realized through the lease up and marketing of the property that there was this unprecedented demand for cell and gene therapy manufacturing. So, through many conversations and a lot of research and fundraising, we launched a cell and gene therapy focused CDMO, and that was really my entree into the life sciences. Now, this happened at a time when all the baby biotechs coming out of Penn and CHOP were really looking for space and resources and talent. And my daughter was going through something healthcare wise that exposed me to the tremendous technology coming out of CHOP. She was born with a benign tumor. It's called a cholesteatoma, which is a slow growing tumor. But during her several surgeries at CHOP and being in the waiting room there, it is heartbreaking to see what these families are going through and knowing that cures exist for some of these cancers and the patients can't get access. So anyway,
Yeah.
it became about access, a personal story, a business opportunity, and my ability to leverage my background to make a difference for patients.
Wow. And you've made some bold bets,
Yeah.
that being one of them. What gave you the confidence to kind of not reinvent yourself, but like follow your intuition? How did you kind of piece that story together?
Yeah, I think it's for me, even now with my next chapter here, it's a combination of research and knowing if it makes sense from a financial and economic perspective, and a market opportunity perspective, and the ability to execute. Like in a business plan, does this make sense? But then it's also about your gut. And does your intuition tell you, are these the right people to do it with? That's hugely important. Do we have the right investors that are in it and we're aligned on what the short, mid, and long term goals are? And does it feel right in your soul? And I think I just made those decisions based on both factual information and intuition.
Yeah, and then you also get that purpose, within life sciences. We support the industry, but I think it's got a purpose like no other.
Yeah.
And then once you have got some kind of link to some of the products, treatments, or whatever, that's when it kind of really opens up. So, that kind of purposeful link, bringing that together as well, just seems like another great bit of timing for you.
Yeah, yeah, I was highly motivated. I mean, there's reason to get out of bed every day. I do have this personal drive, no matter what, really, to get work done and perfect what I'm working on. But when it's for a greater good and patients are waiting and the world is waiting we are at a point in time in the life sciences industry where you're moving to precision personalized medicine based on someone's genetic makeup. It's an incredibly exciting time. Each cancer can have its own DNA, and to be able to genetically attack and kill cancer on an individual basis and deal with some of the larger spread indications like heart disease diabetes, some of the neuromuscular issues. My mom has dementia. Being able to treat people that were previously untreatable with these new breakthrough therapies is something that can easily get me out of bed every day. It's very motivating.
Yeah, I remember being on site in Berlin with a large client about 10 years ago listening to this, and I was like, yeah, this is really something. But then also this the CDMO platform element to this as well is super intriguing because you've got amazing science, but it can't always be fulfilled because, not every company can take it through clinical manufacturing.
That's true too. And there's something about the picks and shovels approach to business that's compelling as well. A lot of times when we were hiring people at CBM, we grew dramatically from 100 to 400 in a very short period of time. It was about the story. And we were hiring people from some of the large pharmas and baby biotechs and other CDMOs. So it was about what we were doing, but also the opportunity in the picks and shovels approach to work on all these different therapies. It wasn't just one company working on one disease indication. You're working for hundreds of companies, and being able to move the ball forward in such a portfolio approach is very compelling.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so we will come back to that. But when you look at the founding of that business, obviously it's got a little bit of intuition, bit of opportunity. I'm intrigued to kind of understand more about when you felt you were a leader in life sciences, because obviously you were new to the game in
Yeah.
a way. When did you actually think, okay, I've got this?
Yeah. I think it's interesting. There's a personal level and then there's the company level, right? And so the company, we were loud, proud, and very different in terms of our marketing when we first launched in 2019. And we got a lot of attention really quickly because of that, which resulted in revenue. So we had entered in a very aggressive way and it proved well for us. So I would say the company made its mark almost at the initial phases of launch because of how we launched. And then the proof points came when the clients came, and then it came through. So internally, we knew we were here and we were going to make it. And then on an individual basis, I was thrust into the spotlight right away. And it became, as an individual, you have internal validation points and external validation points, and that's true for the company as well. But it's about the touch points with the employees, about the touch points with your clients, and then the proof shows up in your KPIs and your metrics. Where's our revenue? Where's our EBITDA? How many square feet do we have online? How many patient programs are we working on? So it's about the metrics, but it's also about the conversations that you have with people and their trust in you and their respect for you and the coverage not that you have internally just with your own employees and your clients but also out in the ether at conferences. When you're standing at your booth at bio, which is happening in a month, and your booth is the busiest one among all the other CDMOs because everyone wants a conversation with you, that's validation right there.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's when you think, okay, this has been
Yeah.
a continual evolution of my varied career, but this is a good one.
Yeah, and then you look at your funnel expansion and how many leads are coming in, the conversations you're having, and how many programs you're pushing through. You've made it, baby.
Yeah, I like that. So
Yeah.
you talked about being like bold, loud, and proud from a marketing perspective. What does that mean for you? Because I see that in you as well. What does that
Yeah.
mean in like yourself and in the boardroom in particular?
Yeah, I mean, it's different in the boardroom. I would say so there's a reason for all of this, right? Why you're not doing it just for attention, you're doing it to help people or you're doing it to fulfill your business objectives or whatever the reasons are. And I would say in the boardroom, you're showing the results of that and why it makes sense and how you're fulfilling the corporate objectives. But I think also on a from a personal level, you have to connect. So, in a private company, the board members are the executives and the investors. Maybe you have one or two independent members, but not necessarily. And depending how many investors you have, they all want a seat at the table. So your board for a private company, very different than a public company, which we can talk about too, is your investors. And the investors care about really one thing. are you meeting our pro forma projections that you promised when we made the investment? And so it's always about, and in an environment like today, where it was very hard to hit unless you were in GLP-1s, in 2022, nobody was hitting their pro forma projection. So it's about what pivoting it's about strong communication with the board. What are you doing to address any shortfalls? What actions are you taking? How long is your cash runway? How are you going to meet? Where you may need to make cuts. Where are you making cuts and why? Where are you going to look at your margins? So, I mean, to answer your question in a short way, it's about communicating accurately, transparently, and authentically to let the board know where you really are and what you're doing to handle this. And they have to have trust in you and respect that you're going to meet those objectives.
Yeah, because you and I have actually spoken before about authenticity.
Yeah.
And, that's definitely part of your own personal values. How do you think authenticity has helped either, I don't know, open a door or build some trust in a tough moment? Not everybody seems to be able to exude it, but you certainly do.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just shows confidence, and it allows people to relate to you, whether it's an investor or an employee or a board member or a client. Everybody wants to be heard and seen and feel related to. And so when we're tech transferring in a program and it's the only program that the company has and they're at the precipice of success, and if we're successful, it means success for them or failure for them. They are handing over their baby, their child to us, basically. And so you need to know that they can trust you. They need to know that they can trust you, and they need to know that you care. And so authenticity is a way of showing that you're able to relate to them on their level and they can connect with you. It's ultimately all about connection.
Yeah, takes you back to being 7 or 8,
Yeah.
and just having that, whatever it is, you shouldn't say quoi, that people do want to help you out.
Yeah, exactly.
But also you want to help other people, but in an authentic way, nothing to hide.
That's right. No, well, I mean, look, you got to be appropriate too, but I would say it is about genuine connection and letting people feel heard and letting them hear you.
Yeah, love that. So as we're just going to stay in the leadership and the lessons of leadership for just a moment, obviously you've worked in a few varying industries. You've also held lots of positions, different positions in the C-suite. How do you decide what kind of leader you're going to be in each of those moments? Is there a little bit of kind of being a chameleon and being able to, wear multiple hats at multiple times? I'm intrigued to understand that magic formula of leadership for you.
Yes, I mean, different roles require different things. Companies are at various points in their growth cycle need very different things, and different industries require different things. So you have to be a chameleon, just like you said, in a good way, right? And be adaptable. And by the way, also different economic environments call for different things too. So at the inception phase of a company that's in a high growth situation, it requires an aggressive approach to leadership. You have to work harder than you've ever had to work in your life. And then as a company matures, it becomes about you can slow down a little, but it's all about disruption at that point. You have to keep your eye on the horizon and what are the competing technologies and how are we keeping up. You almost want 10 to 20% of your company sort of focused on this sort of think tank approach as you get more mature, and 80% mining your current business. And then I would say, obviously I've worked in the mortgage industry, I worked on the trading floor, I worked in investment banking, I worked in real estate, spent some time in utilities and water and mining, a lot of different industries, and they definitely require different personality traits and approaches to business. But the underlying business fundamentals and the underlying fundamentals of being a good leader and being people first and authentic and being able to pivot hold true no matter what position or role you have and no matter what industry or phase of growth that you're in.
Yeah, I love that. That kind of golden thread for you, regardless of industry, role, there's something that you're doing obviously that is working extremely well. So let's talk about some of that, because we've had a discussion about your career superpowers potentially being curiosity and connection.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. So, being open, likable, inquisitive, all of these kind of words. So let's talk about leading with curiosity again. Why, when it comes to kind of people wanting to help you, um, why is that? How do you get that kind of relationship moving quite fast?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's about you're helping them and they're helping you. I mean, tit for tat, to be honest. And I always look, I probably spend a couple hours a week at least having conversations with people that just cold outreach to me and want my help, and I take their call. And it's because it's not because I expect something in return. It's because I genuinely want to help people. I can't spend my entire week doing that, but I like to spend some time doing that. I probably could spend my entire week doing that, by the way, but I do enjoy it. And you know what? It comes and it pays it forward. People will pay it forward either to you or someone else, and it makes the world a better place, as cheesy as that sounds. But you can't play it safe. You have to do bold things to help people. And I think that in the end it does come back.
Yeah, I agree. A little bit of value as well, and if you can go and get, take a little bit of information from somebody that's also going to help, I think it's very worthwhile. That the whole networking piece, some executives that I've spoken to over the past 20 years still don't know how to properly network outside of their current organization.
Yeah, I mean, it can be challenging and daunting to go to these conferences and try to talk, but I enjoy it. So it's authentic for me because I do love meeting people and learning about them. So,
Yeah, love it. So you're extremely well connected and well known now in that kind of private equity venture creation world.
yep.
How do you help investors execute their bold ideas or fix their broken ones?
Yeah, I mean, playing safe, being a sheep doesn't work. You get average returns and average results when you play it safe. Opportunities come from saying yes to high risk, high potential moves, and you have to spot patterns, trust your instincts, and bet big. That's what the $1 billion sort of topper ventile funds that are performing are doing. And I've worked for some of those people and with some of those people, and I spot those behaviors. So that's what my past, but in my current role at AG Capital Advisors, I mean that helping people spot opportunities. It's interesting. I had one fund approach me about this somewhat interesting investment. I mean, it was sort of like, okay, maybe they'd make a pretty good IRR and a multiple, but I identified a way for them to really kill it. And it was about expansion within the key bottlenecks that were taking place in the space. So you can take just a average business and make it crazy, sexy, and exciting by addressing the pain points that the industry is experiencing and then trying to solve a problem that exists in a way that doesn't somebody can't find in the marketplace today. So it's about thinking outside the box and making bold moves and not being a sheep.
Yes, say yes, bet big.
Yeah, say yes, bet big, and think of something. Run it towards what everybody's running away from.
And when you're building like from scratch, either commercial operations or you're helping businesses turning these concepts into companies, how important is it to find your tribe, find the right people within the
Yeah.
organization?
Oh, well, you got to hire all the right people. They're not going to just be there starting it from scratch, right? And so people are the most important thing, especially at the beginning, actually at any time. It is so important to have a culture. You have to establish a culture that is attractive and resonates with growth and what you're trying to achieve. And in the beginning phase of a company, you have to convince people that your story and your idea is something they want to be part of. And so it has to be a compelling and sexy idea. You have to reward people financially. I am very big on generosity and equity and making sure those that are participating in the growth of the company and the story are rewarded for that. And then as the company grows, you have to maintain that culture and hire the best that you possibly can get your hands on.
And what's one of the key like values that you're looking for? In fact, let me reframe the question. We've spoken about the need for grit. How important do you think that is now in a modern leadership team?
I mean, you have to have perseverance, grit, um, the desire to constantly move the ball forward and in multiple balls in many directions. You don't know what's coming at you, and look, you need people that get shit done. I mean, I'm sorry to say it that way, but that should be at the top of everybody's resume. Like, are you smart? Do you have grit? You get things done, and are you able to move with the punches? Because there's going to be a ton of pivots coming at you as you're growing a company, and so you need people that are okay with change and are very independent and self-sufficient and resourceful.
Yeah, the GSD group we have in my business at times, it's like, okay, cool, let's go. That's what we got to go and do. Get shit done and we'll move on.
Yeah, and positive attitude is so important too. I mean, I think in my interviews, that's the first, like, you don't want the negative ninnies because as smart and hardworking as they are, they can be like a cancer to the organization. It's toxic. So you want positive people that are satisfy the other requirements too.
Yeah, and how do you actually try and spot like grit? You know, everybody has been through some tough, not everybody's career is, going from one great thing to the next, but like how do you try and spot it?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to be 100% success with all the candidates you bring on board, but you can do your best to screen them in the interview, check references. By the way, don't check the references they give you, but check all the references that they don't give you. Jobs that everyone's had a failure, understand from that person why they failed. And sometimes they just were in the wrong role. And so that's another thing, by the way. You have to figure out what someone's strengths are and your own strengths for that matter. Like for me, I know what my weaknesses are and I hire to my weaknesses. I hire people, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I need to leave that room. I want everybody around me to be smarter than me and have a better expertise in their particular area of domain. So when it comes to grit, I would say it's important, but positivity is also important, and having the right people in the right seats is I can't think of anything that creates success at a company more than that.
Yeah, I had a guest on here earlier on in the season that was a CEO of a big med tech firm, and he was saying that he wanted to be the laziest CEO he could be in the nicest possible way.
Yeah, and I mean you gotta hire good people, and the way that you spot that to answer your question through the interview is, you know, the situational interviews are super important. Like, give me an example, and you have to just keep asking questions about that and drill down. Like, you could just ask one answer. You can ask just one question in an interview and then have follow-up questions to that one question and dig deep. That's what I would say, and check references too, obviously.
Yeah, love it, love it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about your okay, so your experiences across the earlier part of your career as well, working in some slightly male dominated arenas.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, you've often been the only woman in the room. Okay. How do you lead in those moments?
I am super comfortable with that. And I may be unusual in that regard. I grew up with an older brother. There was always a ton of boys at the house. My dad was a strong figure in my life. So maybe I'm unusual that I'm just oh, and a lot of my friends as I was growing up, I was friends with groups of men. I think having that background I learned to hold my ground, I guess, very early. And candidly, I sort of use the difference as a advantage. So, lean into the visibility. As a woman, you get attention the minute you walk in the room, usually, especially if you're the only woman, and in particular, if you're a diverse woman from a minority background. So just use it to your advantage. Know that people are watching, and yeah, take advantage of that.
Yeah, because I've seen quite a lot of your personal branding and your work on social media platforms like LinkedIn as well. You're deeply engaged in that DEI work, which is fantastic. You're not only kind of saying that you're comfortable with it and you've used it as a superpower, but you're also helping others. So how have you been using the like LinkedIn as a platform to elevate other female leaders? How have you been doing that?
Yeah, well, I'm using it in two ways. One is to just bring awareness to the subject. There is still, unfortunately, women are treated differently. Our population is shrinking. We have very low birth rates. We should be doing everything we can to support women that are in their childbearing years, and I just don't see that. As for global health and economic stability, there should be. I just saw something yesterday. Someone posted about they're paying one of these female entrepreneur startups is paying for is paying for childcare. And so we need more situations like that and I use LinkedIn for awareness to bring thought leadership to the table of A, what can individuals do to advocate for themselves? B, what can companies do to support female leaders? Because there is a tremendous amount of women entering the workforce, but there's a broken rung as women move up. And so, what policies, procedures, and training programs do you have in place for managers to make sure that women advance at the same rate or even more than men? But right now, that's not happening. So, that's what I use LinkedIn for. It's for advocacy, it's for awareness, and let women know that they're not alone. And that men, if they need resources, I'm here.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's great because you're also coming with answers because
Yeah.
sometimes there's just more questions and it can become challenging.
I know. I know. I'm on a panel at Bio and we're talking about manufacturing and scalability challenges. And Jason Foster from Ori Bio just commented and said, we're not going to be talking about all the problems. We're going to be talking about the solutions. And that's how I feel about this women's issue. It's like everybody loves to pile on and complain. And it's irritating to go to some of these women's conferences where that's what it's all about. It should be about here's what we're doing to fix it, and here's what you can do as a company and as an individual to advocate for yourself, to put policies in place, and to make a difference.
Yeah. And I really think we are. I think that, some of the work that you've been doing and some of the groups that you're part of really making a step forward. And also we're seeing it more in life sciences. There's definitely a drive for female leaders and male advocates as well to help that happen.
Yeah.
But one of the other things though that I think you're doing really well is you're helping some leaders in life sciences maybe transition into that private equity advisory, the portfolio career, because lots of people are struggling. They've got great knowledge, but they don't know how to engage and interact with the PE world.
Yes.
How have you been doing that?
Yeah.
That would be a real golden nugget.
Yeah, well, I think there's two interesting things here, right? The PE firms are, generally speaking, very good at deal structuring, potentially finding transactions, closing on the company, but they don't have good operators. So I think it's important for the executives out there that have good operational experience to understand that they are highly marketable and in high demand. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, from an executive perspective, just reach out, use LinkedIn, go to conferences, use the partnering platform, pay the extra couple $100 for partnering, get in there, do a keyword search for investor, venture, whatever the keywords are in the investor landscape, and reach out to those investors and make appointments with them and have a track record that you can speak of for what you've done at your company to supercharge revenue, cut costs, and/or operational excellence, and in particular in today's market, commercial excellence. So figure out a way to market yourself to those sweet spots, and if you can come up with bold business ideas, those investors will back you. I mean, after I left CBM, I had many investors saying, "What's your next business? We want to back you. What is it? What is it? What is it?" So, if you can market yourself in that way, you'll have a lot of investors chasing you to invest in whatever you're bringing to the table, or to have you help them if make something more efficient or um, optionalize, you know, basically make an investment they have better.
Yeah, yeah, because it is quite interesting that people can go through different large corporate businesses. They can also work at times with some PE partners that might back their life sciences business, but they don't just seem to be able to bridge the end of their corporate career with an advisory one. But
Yeah.
there's also a bit of fear, I think, holding people back.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, in the life sciences industry, you're for the most part dealing with like masters and PhD scientists who are naturally more risk averse, I think, just and want everything to be perfect and make sense before they make a move. And you have to have all the data to support all your decisions, and that's why they're great at what they do. But when it comes to the business environment, sometimes you have to act without all the information. And talking to the scientists, I was just on the phone yesterday with a woman who is looking, she's interested, she's a PhD and she wants to learn more about finance. And I sent her all the free resources that you can get your hands on about underwriting a company and doing acquisitions and deal points and everything else, because it isn't about the accounting and the debits and credits and the financials. It's about structuring and understanding the finer deal points. Like that's where the secret sauce is in transactions. So anyway, there's ways to learn all that stuff. And by the way, for all the scientists out there, I think it's actually easier to learn business than it is to learn science. So you have that.
Yeah, and also I think that there's just a way that you mentioned it earlier. There's a way that you present yourself.
Yeah.
There almost needs to be a little bit of reflection and a bit of a masterclass of like, look, you've got all of these fantastic things in your career. You just got to package them right. You got to speak to these, the money people in the right way, giving them the information that they need, and doing it with a bit of entrepreneurialism and a bit of pizzazz.
Yeah, and come from a perspective of abundance instead of scarcity. People generally want to help other people. So reach out to people. Don't be afraid. People will help you.
Yeah, great. So we've covered some amazing stuff so far. So we have been looking at the private equity world, DEI, those kind of things. What I'm intrigued to talk about now is maybe the future of leadership, the future of the industry, because I think we're at quite an interesting point.
Mm.
We've spoken before, and you said that there was like a unique convergence happening, digital, biotech, global scale, and I'm interested to like understand what excites you now about the future of this part of the industry.
Yeah, the convergence topic is fascinating to me, incredibly exciting, moving at the fastest pace that we've ever seen in history in terms of data, analytics, biotech, and the future is really about personalized precision medicine and using that data to help with all the healthcare issues we're experiencing right now. I think execution and scale will be separate winners, right? And so the ability to execute at scale in some of these modalities. And I think the other thing is the whole concept of omics, right? It being able to genetically map a particular tumor or particular disease indication and deliver a medicine that's precise for that particular person and that particular disease. And the most important thing, and what I think the most excited about, is the ability to stop disease before it even starts. Knowing based on biomarkers or your Apple Watch or whatever, at home thing that you're doing, the future of not having to actually go in to a doctor unless you need a procedure and monitor your health from home through digital means is incredibly interesting. And there's technology out there now, for example, that can spot that you're going to have a heart attack years before. So there's a lot of promise about healthcare.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the industry has got some challenges. Obviously, we got the tariff stuff coming into play. We've also got the world of GLP-1 and some of the more traditional aspects of the industry. But this kind of CGT or, the personalized medicine piece, if we can get the right leaders in that space, I think that's where we're going to have an amazing abundance of some fantastic science coming through.
I think it's about partnership, honestly. It's because the capital markets are so tied up right now, and it's hard for these companies to raise money. Capital is more expensive than it has been in a long time. So partnering with the pockets of capital, like the big pharmas, are is going to be really important. So finding a way to figure out what they're worried about, coming up with flexible and creative contracting terms that are milestone based can be a really interesting way to move these technologies forward.
Yeah. And what do you think, or what kind of leadership do you think is going to be required in that part of the industry over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, you got to be people first. In the age of AI, understanding how to leverage people in a way that creates a culture. It's going to be a culture of creativity and not about the day-to-day administrative aspects. So you want people who can think outside the box, find a way to use data um, and predictive analytics in a way that will help you move the ball forward. And so you want technology focused people that understand data and analytics and can think outside the box, because ultimately that's going to be the secret sauce of the future.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, so that's the future. Let me just ask you this one question. We've got a couple more before we wrap up. If you could give yourself, your younger self, I suppose, one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't be afraid. Make bold moves. Leadership is taken, not given. Grab your seat at the table, speak your voice, and, yeah, just don't be afraid.
Yeah, great. So I was going to say, what would you say to someone about to take their own big, scary leap? But I think you've just done it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think well, I mean, it's that, but it's also, once you've done all your homework and you've decided this is your next move, just go in fully, 100%. Surround yourself with people that are better than you. Create an investor and capital stack that believes in you and is in it for the long run and is aligned with what you're aligned with. And then lastly, be prepared to pivot if you need to, because there's a lot coming at us right now in this environment, and you never know what's around the corner. So have a plan B, C, and D.
Love it. Love it. Well, Audrey, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed this. I think the listeners have got loads and tons of value to take out of this. You've given us so many good snippets and good bits of information. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much
Perfect.
for having me.
Thank you.